I saw you poking around in Lady Driver's lorry. She in trouble? It's that bad. Man, what should I do? What should I do to help her? Damn. I always warned her to watch herself. Man. Nothing to do now, I guess. Maybe I should just keep my head down and work on my rhymes while I can. Oh, you know. Tommy Leham's gonna be a musician. Sprechgesang, but with beats. I've got a lot of free time on the road to hone my craft. Tommy Lam was taken. My real name's Jerry Lafitte. Tommy's way better.
It's more him. The man taps his fingers rhythmically against his arm.
Can I help you? Got the 20 real? Good. You got the room for the night, but remember, you'll need another 20 real tomorrow.
How could anyone forget, asshole? Take it easy on him. Deep down, he really hates being the guy who has to remind you. The man ponders his cooking utensils and gives you a little nod, acknowledging your presence. The mention of mañana gets his attention. He smiles and delivers a whole slew of unfamiliar words and lively gestures. Then he falls silent again. They're friends? The man says a couple of sentences in that strange language of his and then seems to wait for you to speak. Just one word. Sounds quizzical. Then he awaits your answer with his brow arched.
Boss need more vodka?
Of course, vodka. Now that makes a very, very special borscht indeed. Turn it up and then ask for some yourself. Turning it up seems like a dangerous idea, honestly. The place is a powder keg. The cook gives you a long, disappointed look, then turns the stove off and seems to wait for you to speak. see a heavy steel door with...
Yes? Hello? Me? No one. I'm just a working class woman.
She doesn't really want to be disturbed that much. The already familiar cold touch of plastic welcomes you as you... The already familiar cold touch of plastic welcomes you as you pick up the handset. The machine swallows your coin and seems to be waiting for your next move. It's unclear whether you actually have muscle memory. Right now, your finger is just drawing vaguely occult patterns in the air. Sure, why not? Muscle memory is a tricky thing. Nothing tricky about that. You just do, fail, repeat, until it works. All it takes is motivation and practice. The tear machine stands in the corner. A sign says, 1 bottle equals 10 cents. Your bottles clunk into the machine, and the money appears with a satisfying jingle. You're a richer man now.
Is this about the questions again? Because I don't really know anything. A warehouse? I don't know. Maybe. I don't really care what Frit does.
She scrunches up her face into an expression of consummate adolescent skepticism.
Fine. Frit doesn't have a warehouse. Just a little back room here. Okay?
Reality? You mean, what reality? Economic reality, or...? I don't really know anything. I mean, I'm 15. I don't know. What about it? Our government? Or do you mean something else? Sorry, I really need to finish this article. Cool.
You see several packaged raincoats fill a low shelf beneath a display of croissants and juice bottles. The raincoats are transparent, except for the big Fritta slogan on the back.
What is what? It's a raincoat. If you want to buy one, then it's only 4 real.
This found A to Z, a back. The smell of cigarettes and perfume welcomes you. The cabin inside is plastered. You close the rust. The kid doesn't even look at you. The trash container stands in the spring snow. The smell of rotten food rises to greet you. You see soggy cartons, dirty rags, and organic waste. You see milk and egg rest with one broken egg in it. some pasta wrapper. Picking up the soggy packages somehow feels familiar. A box falls into pieces in your hands. Batiste Soleil cereal. There are plastic pasta packages below, and turbo noodles. Nothing of note, however. It's just organic waste, cold and slimy on your hands. Apple and potato peels, mostly. Unidentified sludge, and the occasional chicken bone thrown in for good measure. But hey, nothing. It's nothing. Nothing more to see here. What's this? A blue piece of plastic sticks out from the apple peels. It's shiny. Looks like the corner of something. Something larger. A clipboard. A blue plastic clipboard with moist papers hanging from it. They look badly damaged, but you can still make out forms and notes, written in a man's handwriting.
You asking me now? It's some shit copper. How should I know?
Hey, maybe it's your paperwork, officer.
Some items, such as the ledger you found, are interactable. Go to your inventory and select the Interact tab to read your paperwork.
The container sounds a muffled gong. It's the ledger you found in the trash. A pitiful cabbage of white and yellow papers hanging from plastic board, barely held together by a metal clip. This sad display is made complete by the faint smell of urinal cleaner. There's a piece of toilet paper, or is it cleaning tissue? No, it's toilet paper, desperately sticking to the back of the blue plastic clipboard. It's a metaphor for you. Face the desolation. This is your ledger. You're a cop, and it's your official ledger. In your hand, and it stinks like you, too. And looks like you. Below the pathetics, terror. Do not look into its blue heart. It's just toilet paper sticking to the back of the plastic clipboard. You can take it off if you want. Still wet, the toilet paper peels off the plastic easily. All you have to do is shake it off with your finger and voila! The ledger now looks marginally better. An aluminium block runs the width of the board, biting down on the paperwork. Its crocodile teeth are the only thing keeping the papers together. A regular pencil, the tip worn down to nothing, has been attached to the clip. The surface is interrupted by a silvery sticker. It's rectangular, sparkling with iridescence. You don't know how you didn't notice it before. To be honest, you have little to no idea. You're dumb and alone. Somewhere, not here, the helpful Lieutenant Kitsuragi is making notes in his blue notebook. He tilts it ever so slightly. A glowing rectangle catches the light. He could advise you with this. The next moment, a bunch of sodden papers sag from the clipboard in your hand. It's a sorry sight. They're not exactly white. They're yellowed in patches by sunlight and alcohol, and covered in dense blue handwriting. Ink escapes into watercolor patterns, reaching its tendrils across entire pages. The paper itself is checkered, with faint red lines forming short paragraphs. Once in a while, there's a red stamp that exclaims, "Case files commit to paper." The case files themselves are plenty. You count more than 100 sodden, crumpled up, earmarked pages falling apart in your hands. They appear to be sufficiently organized and extremely dense, if mostly illegible. Work, strife, poverty, the Jamrock Quarter. These are handwritten logs of investigations dating back to January 51, this year. The exact number is hard to estimate due to missing pages and an odd naming convention. But there are at least 20, maybe 30 cases undertaken, Not completed, mind you. Yes, it appears you employ a, shall we say, robust yet literary system. Each investigation has its case number written on the margins. Yet, still more tellingly, most are accompanied by a name. Yes, all caps. One is called The Next World Mural. Another, The Square Bullet Hole Murders. Another yet, The Unsolvable Case. Others appear more light-hearted. The guys on a couch in an unexpected location, and the murder at the hookah parlor. Even the rare article-free collapsing tenement. Murder features prominently throughout. You like this grimy murdering, don't you? It's going to take an effort to piece these case files together, but it can be done. Once you're done inspecting them up close. You don't exactly close them, so much as distance yourself from the smelly papers. They're a little further from your nose now. In the back, you see thin, translucent copier paper, some neon yellow, some bright red, all covered in boxes, like marching armies. These look like official forms, waiting to be filled out. 3. The topmost are misconduct fines, the middle ones are station calls, and the bottommost are field autopsy forms. Each is easy enough to make sense of. A monetary penalization ranging from 20 to 250 real. Severe cases allow for 1,000 real, but that requires special paperwork. The details of issuing these fines are spread out over the rest of the fields. These are quite sinister in tone. They give a date and time for the person to appear at the specified precinct police station. Below the call are the criminal charges you risk by not appearing. A dozen pages of thin copy paper, bright red in color. You see the parameters of a deceased human form, waiting to be filled in. Age, sex, condition of internal organs, color of the irises, predation marks, condition of sexual organs. Yes, all that remains now is to fill those forms and hand them to people. Fines for wrongdoers, interview requests for bad guys, and field autopsies to dead guys. What delicious power hid within this pathetic mess. You feel better. The rest of the stinking cellulose is much worse for wear. Being sandwiched between the board and the rest of the paperwork must have spared the fragile copier paper. It's made of dark blue plastic, hard enough to beat someone to submission with. The edges are rounded, however. The U4 size board feels thick and heavy in your hand. Light shimmers on its wet surface. On the back you see the embossed letters, RCM. Blue. The blue heart. Don't look into it. Something rattles inside, ever so lightly. Is there a hidden compartment? The plastic shimmers like lapis lazuli, but it is not see-through. You cannot see to its center. With your hands, U4-sized pages hang from the clip screwed to the top of the board. The acidic stench of rotting food is rubbed off on the cellulose. It now forms the base of the experience. This base surrounded by a faint air of spoiled meat, the stuff of death itself, and then sprinkled liberally with the citrus zest of toilet cleaner. It's the ledger you found in the trash. A cabbage of papers hanging from the board, with the permeables drawer inside. It's barely held together by a clip, then made complete by the faint smell of urinal cleaner. It's proving to be harder than expected. You just don't have the intellectual rigor to patch the quilt back together. Try again later. It's the ledger you found in the trash. A cabbage of papers hanging from the board, with the permeables drawer inside. It's barely held together by a clip. It's proving to be harder than expected. You just don't have the intellectual rigor to patch the quilt back together. Try again later. Arson, petty theft, spousal abuse. Handwritten logs on dozens of investigations date back to January 51. Stamped case files, commit to paper. These are your last couple of months in Revachol, Precinct 41, Jamrock Quarter. You don't exactly close them, so much as distance yourself from the smelly papers. They're a little further from your nose now. The two sides of the board appear slightly misaligned, like a drawer that's come off its slides. If you bend the plastic on your knee slowly, the slides snap back into place. It should be possible to just, Without resistance or sound, the two panels move against each other. The compartment is now open. 2 ticket stubs and a handmade postcard. Two octopuses are smiling, reaching their tentacles toward each other in the colored pencil drawings. The tickets permit access to the zoo in Revachol East. The aquarium costs extra. These let you go there too. Thin wax paper has been glued to a piece of cardboard. Sounds like leaves rustling when you pick it up. You see violet flowers, floral patterns, patches of glue. It smells of chewing gum, apricot flavored. A touch of cinnamon, the end of summer. You think the label says tutti frutti. Familiar handwriting lines the inside of the card, looped, round letters in a woman's hand. A young woman in her 20s. There is care, effort, and a smile, you think. Although that is not something you can read from someone's handwriting. Harry, it begins. You're already reading. I wanted to write you a letter so you can read it when you wake up. Maybe it will make you happy. Throw it away, please. A merciful wind blows in from the Bay of Revachol, dusting the ground at your feet and raising newspapers far away. You feel the card slipping into it.
Let go.
Frisson covers your entire body, a feeling of cold, a persistent chill. No, don't throw away the baggie. There's dust on the drug baggie. It's not good, but at least it's some kind of way to be together. Just like that, the wind picks it from your fingers. Cold, they let go. The wax paper rustles, a whisper light and low. Then a sudden gust raises the postcard to the drizzle-grey sky above, away from you. A small piece of paper dances above Martinez, above slow waves crashing the shore, and the war-torn houses, and the new bâtiments devant alike. Above you, looking up to the grey sky with your hair greasy and wet. And above the distant streets and the 881, even above the old fish market and the church. Its material existence is lost. This great city will pocket it for you. For your own sake, forget about it. Synapses can be rerouted. The mind takes a new shape. For the 80,000 under your jurisdiction. Under Precinct 41, where typewriters fire long into the night, and officers walk the great steps and the bridge, long after the card has landed in the cold shore waters, its writing dissolved, material disintegrated. The wind carries the keepsake away from you. To the southwest, the pale violet dot disappears. No, you should not have thought back at it. Now some of it is on your mind again. The ledger of oblivion-induced mental health is just as shabby as the damaged ledger was. A bunch of sodden papers sags from the clipboard in your hand.
The Ledger of Oblivion is a special item that can be used both as an interactable and a tool equipped in your hand for skill bonuses. Find it under the Tools tab in your inventory.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with? Yes, my eyes on the harbour have sent word to that effect. What have you discovered? Yes. And will you start an official investigation?
She's trying to conceal her excitement, but the slight glimmer in her green eyes tells you otherwise.
I've kept my eye on the Camioners. Even tried to get to know one. It's a mystery I'm already invested in. Which one of them, if any, could organize such a complex operation? Okay. I thank you for sharing that much with me. My employer thanks you as well. In any case, you've held up your end of our arrangement. Now it's my turn. I wouldn't normally break protocol like this, but the situation demands it. If you don't solve this murder, I'm afraid we may have a bloodbath on our hands.
The words bloodbath sound cold in her mouth. They taste of iron and strawberries.
Yes. I'm afraid this strike may descend into a small-scale civil war, with possible consequences for all of Rivershoal West. I have an indirect role to play, I'm sad to say. My employer experienced a momentary lapse of faith in me. In that moment, they elected to deploy a private military contractor as an insurance measure. They called it my security detail. They were dispatched after I relayed the Union's initial offer. A member of the board. I tried to convince my employer it was simply a piece of rhetoric, or a joke. They did not appreciate the humor. Absolutely not. These mercenaries are muscle, pure and simple. They are meant to intimidate the Union into surrendering. Crenell, an Oronese military company. As far as I know, 3 arrived in Martinez. They report to me sporadically, but they do not answer to me. To be frank, our relationship is deteriorating. They wear ceramic armor, have semi-automatic weapons, and years of combat experience. They also have trauma and stressor disorder, and no idea how to conduct themselves in an urban civilian environment. The story is, one of them, the colonel, I don't know his real name, sexually assaulted a local woman while he was drunk and separated from his unit. This allows some of the more militant Union members to subdue him. He was taken out behind the whirling in rags and lynched last Sunday night. Nothing. Mr. Clare refuses to let me into the harbour. I have not been able to discuss this matter with anyone there. The remaining 2 Crenell contractors carry out their orders, for now. It's a smokescreen. In secret, they are conducting an independent military tribunal into the lynching. Once this investigation is concluded, executions will follow. It is very far from disco. My only hope is that you provide a single, concrete suspect before the mercenaries indiscriminately pick theirs. Simply put, if you don't pin this on someone good, and do it fast, they will identify and execute everyone present at the lynching. This in turn will force the Union to respond.
They would have to project strength and power. The Union has over 2,000 men.
Have you ever seen a hornet invade a beehive, detective? It's not pretty. These men work in tandem using semi- and fully automatic firearms. Their armor is virtually impenetrable to muzzle-loaded weapons, even yours. Most Union workers don't have guns at all. As I said, a bloodbath. It doesn't have to be like this. Nameless, badgeless officer of the citizens' militia. One single, concrete suspect delivered into civil court, and I may be able to defuse this situation. Not much. Their public resume is relatively good, as far as private military contractors go. I believe they were once called Downwell.
Down a deep, black well.
They boast a long list of clients. Saint-Baptiste, Welchman-Lorenz, Eendracht. A warning sign, however. The operations concerned all take place in third or fourth world countries. Guarding facilities, escort missions and such. Sadly, no. Before this happened, I had little interest in them. Now that I do, I don't have the resources. If you still have access to the ICP's database, you could run a better background check than I ever could. It may take some time, though. Ah, yes, your condition. The International Collaborative Police maintains a database for these sorts of things. Perhaps you should consult it. It was just a suggestion. I have, and they will. However, these orders take time to reach what is basically a rogue unit out in the field here. Until they do, it's all on us. I have an indirect role to play, I'm sad to say. My employer experienced a momentary lapse of faith in me. In that moment, they elected to deploy a private military contractor as an insurance measure. They called it my security detail. Absolutely not. These mercenaries are muscle, pure and simple. They are meant to intimidate the Union into surrendering. Crenel, an Oranese military company. They wear ceramic armor. The story is, he was taken out behind the whirling... Nothing. Mr. Clare... It's a smokescreen. In secret, they are conducting an independent military tribunal into the lynching. Once this investigation is concluded, executions will follow. It was the Union who strung him from that tree. My hope is that you provide a single concrete suspect before Crenel indiscriminately pick theirs. Simply put, if you don't pin this on someone good, and do it fast, they will identify and execute everyone present at the lynching. This in turn will force the Union to respond.
They would have to. The Union has over 2,000 men.
Have you ever seen these men, as I said, a bloodbath? Many bleak scenarios have already come true. Nameless, badgeless detective of the citizens' militia. All we can do is keep the rest from following suit. One single, concrete suspect delivered into civil court, and I may be able to defuse this situation. Or he didn't. This is information passed on to me from some teenagers loitering around the canal. I cannot testify by it. The remaining contractors, their tribunal, it's what they believe. That the man was killed because he assaulted a local woman. I've asked around a bit. This seems to be the accepted story around Martinez. Last Sunday night, at the Whirling in Rags, the hostel by the gates, supposedly the colonel was drunk, maybe on narcotics too. Either way, he's alleged to have sexually assaulted a woman. Sometime later, a group of dock workers got their hands on him. That's a good question, officer. I don't have the slightest idea. As I said, it's a rumor. About a rumor. In any case, it's what the Colonel's remaining colleagues believe.
You'll meet her soon enough, you feel?
If you mean did I see him alive, yes. But I did not know him.
You don't know how you know. It's not written on her face, nor in her voice, but she had sympathy for this man.
Liked is a bit strong. He was the most charismatic among them. He handled all the talking. His departure left a major gap in the group's communication skills. Lely, his service name, a nom de guerre, most likely. He wouldn't divulge his full name. Only one of them did. A bad sign if there ever was one. He was 40. Or 50. It's hard to say which. He had a combat injury on his lower jaw. It made it difficult to estimate his age, or gauge his facial expressions. He was, Occidental, I think. Light brown hair, a mixed accent, Oranese, or Messinian, maybe. His injury gave him an accent all his own. In a way, it was humanizing. He had to learn to speak through it, through the injury. That's all I know, I guess. I only met him once. They've gone to ground, as it were. I don't recommend seeking them out. For one, they're almost certainly armed to the teeth. They don't have the same respect for the Revachol citizens' militia as I do. To put it bluntly, they think you're vigilantes. Ghetto savages. It will not be a fruitful meeting.
Vigilantes. You're a professional officer of the only legitimate authority in Revachol.
Somehow, I doubt that lecturing them on the legitimate use of force will persuade them to stand down. You're likely to run into them eventually. When that happens, I'll be in a better position to mediate if I don't appear involved.
One is obviously the scab leader at the harbour gates. The one chanting the idiotic slogans. He's barely maintaining his disguise. The other has a vantage point in a building south of the roundabout. They were keeping tabs on you while you were canvassing the lorry drivers.
That may be so. I still hope you heed my advice. There's no need to kick the hornet's nest. That would afford a good vantage point. In any case, it's practically inaccessible. I hope I can answer it better. Until the executions start? Truthfully, I don't know. It depends on their progress identifying the members of the lynch mob and their impatience. Not on this matter. I'm afraid they consider this a personal initiative.
5 days, not more. Maybe sooner.
It's a matter of days, not weeks. I am sorry to have been the bearer of bad news. If there is anything else I can help you with, please ask.
She reaches for the photo, takes it, then holds it in her hand. For about half a minute, in silence. Her mouth is relaxed. The accordion lines near her mouth vanish. The pearls of her eyes move slowly on the photo's surface. She has no excess of emotions for this cadaver. Has she seen dead bodies before? It's likely.
Sorry. I was trying to see if I can read the web of interdependencies between these points. The stars. I can't. But that's how you read this story. The points themselves don't have letters, numbers, anything. Their size, location on the body, and distance from each other tells you what they represent. Close. Port cities. This is an Oronese map of the waterways, a sailor's tattoo worn by wayfarers of the Dolorian century. Over 300 years ago, the sailors would mark their bodies to map their travels. The sailor's soul would use it to fly back home if they should die abroad. This is a sort of contraption to be reeled back in by. The silver cord, they would call it.
Where is he now?
That is precisely what the sailors feared when they drew these maps. A fear of drowning within one's own corpse. Quite a few. Vredefort, the Oronese capital, traditionally stands on the right shoulder. He started somewhere near here, I think. Then he made his way to the Pretto Grangi, through what I think must be the Stutz Canal, an artificial channel through the Occident. From the Pretto, he sailed to the Insulindic Ocean, first the Semnese Islands, then this. Revachol. Those are the two constants. Vredefort on the shoulder, and Revachol in the heart. They started the tradition of these maps right after the discovery of Insulinde, at the dawn of the Inter-Islary Age. I can't. This man was no sailor, and these are no ports. I can understand geographic fragments, but not their meaning.
Somewhere in an office lit by a single green desk lamp, Captain Ptolemaeus Price, 58, bald and bespectacled, is writing in a ledger on his desk. Rows and rows of days and weeks, laconic remarks in a single column. Patrol, case, vacation, injured. In Martinez looking into Krenon, he writes in one. Then the man puts down his pen and rubs his temples with both hands. Outside there is a siren. Distant gunshots on the streets of the Jamrock Quarter.
That makes sense to me. We have no more use for a map of the waterways, just like we don't need sailors the way we used to. This is what the custom would morph into on the Occident. Mercenary tattoos. His platoon members? The other contractors. Though I do not suggest you go and show them that picture. This man was their friend and comrade.
It could go this or the other way. Maybe if you're tactful, it could be beneficial. Challenge accepted. I say we do it.
I am relieved you think so. I don't think deciphering that tattoo should come before public security. Is there anything else I can help you with? This reality. Ah, yes, the episode. Sounds like an acute case of encephalopathy, now that I think of it. But then I'm no doctor. Ask away, officer. I'll help however I can.
All right, we're in. I know these all look good, but begin with the first, okay?
We're in Martinez, baby. A casual term of endearment popular among the 50-plus crowd. It's a disco holdover, pay it no heed. Aren't we all?
She refers to your corresponding ages.
Martinez is a district of Revachol. A very small district tucked away near the industrial harbour, north of the 881 and Jamrock. You would be excused for not knowing about it. Unimportant, they say. Forgotten, even. Shelled to smithereens during the Revolution. It has its charms, just not this time of year. I'm not a good ambassador. I've only been here once before, as a teenager. Not a lot has changed. There are ruins, a terminal, fishing boats, reeds, boys with boxy shoulders.
A brief spike of longing in her upright body. The dots under her eyelids shake.
This place used to be a province. A workers' resort before the city swallowed it and the artillery did its work. The reeds are the real star of the show here now. The further down the coast, the wilder it gets. Yes, I was slumming it with some girlfriends of mine. We had boats and... Don't hold it against me. The boys certainly did not.
There's a spark in the air, a live wire hanging in the wind, in your hungover neocortex. Then the sea air cools it down.
It's not really a sea, it's the Bay of Revachol. And the bay feeds into the ocean. Yes, we're on an island in an ocean. The world's largest body of water, the Insulindic.
Vast, lukewarm and unknowable, flowing in and out of sight.
Caillou, as you already know. Imagine a pebble. A smoothed-over pebble amidst a great blue sea, misshapen, cracked. The cracks are the River Esperance. We're in the delta of this river, on the 6th branch, the Martinez distributary.
It is clear this pebble is of enormous value to her.
Revachol? Revachol is what you call a city. The great kind.
As if it's self-explanatory, beyond patriotism, a fact.
History detective. They built this city to resolve history. Our part in it, at least. Our centuries. The nations of the Occident, or migrant workers from Seminine and Ile Marat, depending on your creed. In the DeLorean century, 380 years ago. They say it's where the terrible questions of our time will be answered. The tensions are highest, the fault lines deepest. By that I mean conflicts. Ideological conflicts. The stuff of men. We are standing on a fertile, self-sufficient island able to sustain up to 200 million people in the middle of the Insulindic Ocean, the world's connective tissue. It's where the money is. I think it's fair to say so. Martinez is about 22 kilometers from the center of the world. That soldering iron is the Bank of the World building. The bottom floors are Insiacom. Coalition government, Insulindian Mission Command.
Silence. She lowers her hand. The water, the light. It's as though you're seeing it for the first time. There is no recognition, only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it. She observes your eyes scanning the horizon, then breaks the silence, slowly. This is one thought you need to complete. Where are you?
Was there something else you wanted to know? I remember something about a lowdown. These are unimportant times, Detective. You and I were born after the dust had settled. 1,000th of a second too late. For the big time.
The smile of a predator. No doubt what she's got in mind.
The revolution. It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so, our species gets together to decide what's next, who gets shot in the head, and who gets the mineral rights. It's a real kerfuffle. Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution. But the communists, they all got shot in the head.
She's not gloating. It's a relieved celebration.
Oh, and the anarchists too. They shot them well. So well, one forgets they even existed. Did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people. Yes, the Insulindian deluge, they call it. Oh, lots of people. Even the king got shot in the head, or thrown beneath a horse, or drowned. Accounts differ. It was unceremonious. Just as well, he wasn't actually the king. Just the king's nephew. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad. Yes, King Guillaume had a nose for bad PR. He ran before it. What is the expression? Went down? Anyway, Gil got out alive and his nephew Frisell got shot in his place. Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. It was a wild time. The liberals got the mineral rights. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. Liberals are usually middle-class people, Detective, or the remaining gentry, the beneficiaries of the pre-revolutionary arrangement. Some were rich enough to stay with the Constitution, with monarchy. Big mistake. Others bet on the revolution. They were called the ultras, or ultra-liberals. They fared well. They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war ended. Everyone else got shot in the head, remember? To foreign intervention, the coalition. Those people really took the mineral rights. The liberals took everything that wasn't nailed to the ground. The coalition took the ground. The ocean, the laws, and the people. The coalition of nations. Grad, Mesk, Vesper, Messina, Oranje, and Sur-le-Clay. The armed center of the world. They landed here and ended the revolution. It was the moralist thing to do.
There is bitterness in her voice, tempered with understanding. She is critical, but ultimately understands the cause.
The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in mineral rights, and not shooting people in the head. At least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. They are the long-standing provisional rulers of Revachol now, the coalition government.
The rulers of Revachol, and also the world. These guys are strong.
This is their zone of control. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took. Technically speaking, you are a moralist. A devout man of the center. Hard to come by. It's good to have someone who takes a moderate approach to head shooting. In your line of work, I mean. The turn of the century revolution? Don't answer it. It's a trick question. The revolution began in '02 on the Isla of Grad, though by the end, nearly the whole world had gotten involved. It wasn't a who, but a what. A pandemic of Zarat, a particularly virulent prion disease, which the authorities in Grad proved unable to contain. Then Marzolf came along and overthrew the government. It made people overthrow their governments. Indeed, Zarat is a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed brain tissue. The actual causes of the revolution were material. The pandemic only provided the spark. From Revachol and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Marzolf's government was overthrown in '08, and the coalition crushed the Revachol commune 2 years later. It was the end. Why? You and I, officer. Our lives in the zone of control.
Something tells you her life and yours are not that similar.
No doubt. But we share the same time and position on the planet's crust. That counts for more than you think. A city-state divided into free market zones under the everlasting interregnum of the Coalition of Nations. And you, of course, the citizens' militia.
The clatter of typewriter keys fills the main hall of the reappropriated silk mill. Precinct 41. Chad Tilbrook presses enter. Outside, Officer Elfboy Williams slams the door of an armored motor carriage.
The zone of control is the third incarnation of Revachol, after the failure of the suzerain and the commune. Modernity. They developed the marvels of the inter-Islary communication. Telematic milieus, radiation, colored plastics. Meanwhile, in Revachol West, the aftermath continues for the 5th decade. 43 years. Hard to fathom, I know. The 20s saw a decade of urban war, west of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still, it's regarded as an improvement on what came before. '08 to '19 was simply hell. The 30s? Things settled down in the 30s. Revachol East transformed itself into the world's largest tax haven, with the international community's blessing. For the first time in a long time, it seemed like things were going somewhere. No. It was a market mirage fueled by cocaine and quantitative easing. The 40s dispelled it like a cold splash, an Isla-wide hangover, you might say. And here we are. Welcome to reality, baby.
From the looks of it, the 50s haven't been much better for the zone of control. You can see it in her eyes. Days slipping away.
We could have had so much more. Every one of us. If only we played it right. Good question. What would you have done differently? And I asked you, past less detective of the citizens' militia, What insight has acute encephalopathy given to you?
Here's some wisdom, lady. Say the death thing. A cold creeps up your spine, reaching its tendrils up your neck, toward the back of your head.
So a quarter of humanity simply lost their minds. And how would you stop a prion, a complex folding protein, unlife, with the technology 50 years ago?
The wind stops, and for a moment, there's silence. The charge dissipates into the dark water. All is quiet on the Martinez inlet.
Pokma, thy cannons.
Liquidate? That's what King Philip kept screaming from the Sol Aurum. Liquidate! Liquidate! In the end, they liquidated the Sol Aurum, melted the palace cube down to gold and platinum, and sold it for bullets. Strange times. They are what they are. Who knows? An afterbloom may yet come. Anyway, enough sentimentality. Is there anything else you want to know?
She won't maneuver her way out of this one.
I am the vilest of the vile. A traitor, a devourer of nations and infants. I am an ultra.
It's sharp.
An ultra-liberal. It's a type of liberal. From the revolution. It's, not the moderate kind. Haven't you heard? I am a nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp. One of those who pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. We surrendered the nation to the financier pirates. No sane person identifies as an ultra-liberal anymore. Not in broad daylight. You've got Revachol in your blood. A real nationalist. Tell me, now that I've uncoiled myself, are you repulsed?
In her green eyes, you see a mixture of truth and self-satire. Decades of guilt and pride. Forgive her. But only because you like pearlescent teeth and those light green eyes.
A devil, who being of great charm and guile, sneaketh into the homes of the godly.
Beneath her waterproof raincoat and silk shirt is a body imbibed in numb 12 perfume. You are suddenly and intimately aware of it.
I'm afraid you'll find that every woman is a devil woman, detective. There are only aesthetic differences between one and the other. When the dust settled, the liberals were the only ones left to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power to shape the future. This was all our last generation managed. With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinez a monument to the efficacy of its artillery.
While a gentle wind sweeps the streets in the rebuilt east, light drizzle washing it clean, lights go up and motor carriages circulate the tracks.
I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the Coalition. Not here in Martinez, and not in the Stella Maris or Delta Beachheads either. If not for my own sake, then for my daughters. We had an obligation to defend our sovereignty. We should have burned the whole Isola down rather than let them have it.
Dark orange flames reflect in her green eyes. An oil fire on the ocean.
Perhaps. My intellectual vanity will be my undoing. Yes, I suppose I am. But I wouldn't be a patriot anywhere but here. Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a mother. And a wife. Now, shall we return to reality? A bird? A Svenicid? A flightless bird of the polar regions? Of course you're not, my dear. I'm just terrible at guessing games. Ah! This is the pier of Rue de Saint-Ghislaine, 33A, where the tenants have been kind enough to rent me a slot. Or two. A pre-revolutionary tenement. Old buildings are called tenements, you see. And new buildings, bâtiments. After les bâtiments nouveaux. But 33A and 33B are not nouveaux. They're old. This one used to be 8 to 10 stories tall. A real high-rise by the standards of the last century. Built to mirror the skyscrapers across the bay in the Delta. That was before the war, of course. Mostly the urban middle class, I believe. This was once primo real estate, before the cannons lopped 4 or 5 stories off. Splat, splat. Wonderful. The girl in the old lady rags. Looks like a sullen and rebellious member of a teen infraculture. Yes, you and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, the food in the chain restaurant, those are all too popular for the girl in the old lady rags. She prefers a fantasy world, an infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It is an illusion, I'm afraid. There is no refuge from the supraculture. I can't. That's how simple it is. One may dye their hair green and wear their grandma's coat all they want. Capital has the ability to subsume all critiques into itself. Even those who would critique capital end up reinforcing it instead. All right. What next? Glad to have been of assistance. The little that I know. Anything else? You have. And how did you like Mr. Clare?
Finally, time to choose sides.
What? I am afraid you have misread the situation, Detective. This is not some feudal conflict. It is a negotiation. Of course. And I don't expect you to share anything he told you with me. I'm not a corrupt verm myself. However, If you felt like passing some information, how could I stop you? Are we not human? Are we not curious to hear another person's take? It's only natural. We would only be gossiping.
Tell her she'll like you for it.
Did you now? What sort of borscht is he making? The strike brew. That's a classic. And by turn up the heat, I presume you mean put more alcohol in it? Beyond curious. I will choose to interpret that as you turning the alcohol in the strike brew down. For the sake of our professional relationship. And because I don't like the idea of them any more drunk than they already are. What else? Of course, Detective. Should something come up later down the road, don't be afraid to drop by for a chat. Until then, is there anything I can help you with?
Wow, you work hard. Oh, yes, you hustle. You're a provider. It's tough out there, but you keep it real and provide. Look at yourself. You're a human pedometer. You must have walked 200,000 steps down cracked asphalt, mosaic, sand, and linoleum after you re-emerged. That is the sign of a hustler who never gives up. The world is harsh and people are evil. You didn't make it that way, and you won't let it break you. You ride. That's just what it's like, life and death. But you got gills on your side, baby. Got those black papers with the faces of the innocents on them. You bring in the Franco-Negros and the Solas. It ain't easy, but you do it. Day in and day out. You didn't make the rules, but you won't lose. You're a cop, and a sprinter, and a money printer. Yeah, you're in the sales business. Shake 'em for shit and then pawn it off. Law officer style. Sure. And has it been easy? Is life easy? Have you not gone into cardiac arrest? Are you not about to have an anxiety attack or shoot yourself in the mouth? But you still hustle 24/7, ride or die. Now, ask yourself, are you rich? That's right. You work harder than anyone. You almost rode yourself to the grave and you're still practically a hobo. Why is that? The Guardsman has set himself up one of those self-replicating money structures. You should learn from it. Don't play the victim. Think hustler. Think with your head. Boo-hoo. The system is broken. The establishment is keeping me down. That's not the fuck yeah attitude you're used to. What is this? Why are you so poor? Because of the taxes. G-Man's got his jam-covered sticky fingers in your pocket, stealing from you every time you buy, sell, walk, talk, fart, so much as sneeze. Every time you wipe your ass, they got their direct and their indirect modes of taxation. Sales tax, excise duty, extraction tax, alimony, one tax that doesn't even have a name. Plus there's the stuff people in other countries pay for. That makes them ask for more money from you. Here, total tax duties add up to 98% of all your money. Here you go, hustler. Fight the righteous fight. Free the people. Keep it real. Keep it street. Keep foaming at the mouth furiously on the tax issue. What's this? We're getting reports of normal, reasonable, temperate political opinions somewhere in Martinaise. The air suddenly feels calmer, more transparent in a strangely tender way. Perhaps it's the hangover. Perhaps it's a temporary surge of serotonin. But something tells you it's time to become a citizen of the Kingdom of Conscience. It is not a place. It is a moment in time that can only arise in the right circumstances in all of human history. it's only been achieved a handful of times. Incrementally. Yawn, you'd get there faster with a little speed. History's greatest catastrophes have been brought about by people trying to make the world a better place too quickly. That's the genius of Dolores Day. She recognized that progress is meaningless if its gains are lost because of instability. Real, lasting change can only come about gradually, increment by increment. Tisk tisk, just because you live in the present doesn't mean you have the right to place your needs above the needs of the future. You may never live to see the kingdom of conscience. Your children may not. Even your grandchildren might not. But that's no excuse not to keep working. What a fucking joke. Do you believe the status quo is preferable to chaos and bloodshed? There you have it. Sometimes holding the line is progress. The kingdom is difficult to comprehend and even more difficult to describe, partly because humanity will need to discard many of the categories that define and limit it today. The kingdom of conscience is post-capitalist, post-national. It's also post-industrial, post-ideological, and even post-sexual. Slow down, Mr. Reasonable. Did you miss the part about compromising and taking things slow? That's right. Remember, real democracy is just around the corner for Revachol. When that real democracy kicks in, a long time from now, we are all going to be so much happier. As you turn, a bright light catches your eye, making you squint. From a distant sunset, a stage light, flash photography, nowhere in particular. It's just what superstar law officers do. They squint at lights, and they solve shit. Yeah, you have. You're a big dick cop, Dick Mullen. Salam Rocky Bayi, badass on-the-edge disco cop. Time to recede into a ludicrous fantasy world. Here we go. Camera. Lights. With a sudden flash, the world freezes around you, and you along with it. In an iconic monochrome solution, a black silhouette against a rasterized orange world. It's on.